Xpress Nation, we are so back. I'm your host, Charles Simmons. Most folks know me as Coach Simmons, so you call me wherever you like. I bring you GameDay Express. I know, like a lot of y'all, are very excited that college football is officially back. I know I've missed it the past several months. I mean, I'm an addict to college football. I'll admit that right off the bat. And it's a pretty light schedule, nothing too crazy. You know, all your impactful games outside of the Kansas State-Iowa State game are all next week. So we don't have too many exciting matchups, but we just have enough college football to kind of fill that void. Now, before we get into the nitty-gritty, into the big conversations of the day, let me give you a little breakdown of what to expect from this podcast. Now, like I said, this is the GameDay Express. What you can expect from it is it's the in-season edition of the Football Express podcast. And it's just going to be a 30 to 45 minute long conversation of all things football to kind of gear you up for the game day. So we're going to talk about player updates, injury updates, little recruiting news just to keep y'all on your toes. We're going to talk about the hottest storylines of the week. And then we're going to end it all on my game day picks. My game day picks will be consisted of 3 games that I choose from that given Saturday. I'll kind of break both teams down, talk about their strengths, their weaknesses, and then I'll kind of give you who I believe is going to win each game. Then that following Monday, I will do kind of a post review of how I did on my game day pick. So if I went 3-0, 2-1, 1-2, or 0-3, I will drop that as a separate video, and it will be kind of a post review. So, and I don't want to drag this intro on way longer than what it is. So let's go ahead and get into the conversation. Now, over the past couple weeks, I've dropped several different preseason top 5 lists consisting of quarterbacks, running backs, receivers, D-line, O-line, DBs, and I've caught some haymakers. You know, I've been heavily criticized for the list that I've kind of put out there. And the one that I've gotten criticized the most about is my quarterback list. And it's mainly for the fact that I did not include Garrett Nussmeier. You know, I got a lot of heat for that. A lot of folks are hating on the fact that he's not in my top 5 when he's a consistent Heisman contender. Now, the reason why I didn't include him into my top 5 is because when you compare him to the guys I did include, you know, DJ Lagway, John Mayer, and really it's those 2 guys that was kind of between Nussmeier, Mater, and Lagway. Those 3 guys right there were all in the same conversation. Who do I leave out? Who do I put in? And it just came down to injuries and who I felt the most confident about. You know, John Mater, dual threat. He's going to be a huge, vital piece to Oklahoma's running game. So with the dual threat ability that he's bringing to Oklahoma, the production value that he's going to bring to that offense, I love it a lot more than Nussmeier's value. For the sole fact, Brian Kelly came out and said that Nussmeier will be a prominent piece of the running game. And to me, I don't really like to hear that because Nussmeier has had a knee issue. You know, he did deal with a little knee problem during fall camp. And for me, if you're going to be used as a dual threat quarterback, you're going to have to be mobile. And that's going to increase your likelihood of receiving an injury. And, you know, as someone who's coached football and who's currently coaching football, until I see my eyes on the product, you know, because I'm not involved with the behind the scenes. I'm not involved with Nussmeier on the field or the LSU offense. So all I'm getting are reports and speculations. And this is what Brian Kelly said. Well, this is what this off the field reporter said. And until I kind of see the on field product, there's a little question mark on, is his knee going to really be able to handle the workload that I'm expecting he's going to receive in that running game? Because that was really one of the weaker parts of LSU's offense last year was the running game. So if Nussmeier is supposed to bring that next level to that running game, then I would like for his knee to be 100%. And just with the little knee issues that he's had, it's a little concerning for me. You know, Lagway was in that conversation of concerns when it comes to injuries, but he's not going to be utilized like Nussmeier in the running game. Yes, he has the running capability, which will allow him to escape the pocket, to extend plays. But from what I've seen, he's not going to be asked to run the ball like Nussmeier. So the injury concern on him is not as severe that it is with Nussmeier. That's why Lagway and Mayer kind of made my top 5, or not kind of, but they did make my top 5. You know, 2 of the guys that I didn't really get a lot of heat on was Cade Klubnik, Arch Manning. I think everyone kind of has them in a consistent top 5. And then my last quarterback I put into my top 5 was Cade Klubnik. I just said Cade Klubnik. That was a botch on my part. Sam Levitt. I'm sorry, y'all. I got the nerves rocking today. I'm so ready to watch the first game. 12 o'clock. I am ready for Kansas State, Iowa State. So my nerves, I'm kind of anxious. I'm sorry. That's on me. But Sam Levitt was somebody I added into my top 5. Actually, he's my number 2. I think he's a really under-the-radar type of quarterback. I don't think enough people are really eyeing him based off of what he did last year. So that's kind of the rundown of my top 5. I don't want to spend too long on it because we have a lot to talk about. You know, another group that I put out was my receiver list. Little FYI, all these lists are on my socials, so you can go to TikTok, you can go to Instagram, and you can find all my top 5 lists. I don't want to carry on the receiver conversation too long, but kind of hit some high notes. Eric Rivers. He's somebody I put in. He's a transfer from FIU to Georgia Tech. Highly productive receiver, 62 receptions, 1,100 yards, 12 touchdowns. Averaging almost 19 yards per catch. Right there at 18.9. I mean, that is being at 5'11", 180. He is a big ball receiver. His highest career, yardage and touchdowns last year was against New Mexico State with 295 and 3 touchdowns. If he can bring that type of value and Georgia Tech can utilize that type of value at receiver, then that opens so much up for Georgia Tech. So that's why I have Eric Rivers at number 5, because I think the value he brings to Georgia Tech is tremendous, and I personally love it. I might be a little biased just because I have a lot of high hopes for Georgia Tech. So Eric Rivers going over there, I'm just hoping that you're going to see another 1,000-yard, 10-plus touchdown season. Help kind of get some of the pressure off of Haynes King and Jamal Haynes and kind of elevate that passing game, in which I think Eric Rivers can very much do. 2 guys I don't think there's a lot of controversy around. Jeremiah Smith, Ryan Williams, both made my top 5. Jeremiah Smith obviously being the number 1 receiver, but a lot of lists that I've seen don't include my number 2, and that is Jordan Tyson from ASU. To me, Tyson plays a very similar style that Jeremiah Smith plays. He can bully the DBs on those high points. I mean, he's a very bully ball type of receiver. That's what I, consider Jeremiah Smith. And when I say bully ball, think about your Calvin Johnsons, your Julio Jones, right? Those very dominant physical receivers. You can throw it up high, and they're guaranteed to reach it at its highest point, and they're going to beat everybody in the air for that ball. Tyson reminds me a lot of that play style, but I see the little more agile side to Tyson. So if I had to do player comps, I would say Jeremiah Smith is closer to Calvin Johnson, where Tyson's a little closer to Julio Jones, which both phenomenal comps I would say to have, and I think both receivers are extremely fantastic. I might be a little biased with Tyson just because of the high hopes I have for ASU, and I love the offense that Kenny Dillingham put out last year, and I think that's just going to be a repeat production. So watch out for Tyson. Watch out for Eric Rivers. Now, if you want to see the rest of my top 5, go ahead and go check out my socials. Like I said, I got D-line on there. I got O-line, running backs, DBs. So if y'all interested on seeing the rest, check those out. Now we're going to take a quick break real quick, and we're going to come right back into it. It is trivia time. Real quick, these trivia questions will be played and asked during the breaks of each segment. So, this is the first week we're doing it. Let's see how it goes. And to answer all these questions, go to my X page. I will have the link in the description, and use hashtag FBX GameDay Xpress when you answer all the questions. Now, for trivia question 1, how many games have played in Ireland, and what year was the first one played? One more time, how many games have played in Ireland, and what year was the first one played? Hint, you gotta go back to the 1980s. Alright, so I hit you with the first trivia. This is the second trivia. Which team was the most recent to lose their opening week conference game, but still won their conference championship? Which team was the most recent to lose their opening week conference game, but still won their conference championship? The hint to this one, it happened in the 2000s. So I've ran into some difficulties in the recording of this podcast, so I'm having to leave a big chunk of the podcast out. Next week, I promise I'll have it all where you'll get the full 30 to 40 minute conversation. But as of right now, we're going to go ahead and just turn course and go straight into our game day pick. Starting off, I have Fresno State versus Kansas. Now, it was really hard to choose what the first game I was going to cover because this is a very light week 0 schedule. It was either going to be Stanford versus Hawaii, but I was like, you know what? I'll go with Fresno State versus Kansas because Fresno State is introducing a new head coach with Matt Ants, the ex-North Dakota State head coach. So he brings championship mentality to the program, a program that went 6-6 last year that needs to kind of change the direction that it was going down. I don't know how competitive, Fresno State is going to be year 1 under Matt Ants, but you can definitely expect a different type of Fresno State football. Like, you're going to get more of a physical style. You've seen the way he kind of coached the North Dakota State team, and even when he went to the USC as the linebacking coach. I think he's going to really emphasize defense. He's going to increase how those trenches really perform. For Kansas, that's going to be a real test because they were kind of sloppy to begin the year. And teams like Fresno that are kind of under the radar, not a lot of people are expecting, Kansas can slip to because just Kansas is unreliable. There's so many question marks on can Kansas be consistent. Now, if they take the momentum that they had ending last year when they beat Colorado, they beat BYU, Kansas very much can be in the conversation inside the Big 12. But it's all about consistency. I truly doubt they can stay consistent. So they need a marquee game, a great game all around performance-wise to make that momentum kind of go in the right direction. So I'm going to pull Kansas just because I favor their offense. I think their offense is extremely explosive. I don't think Fresno really has the tools to counter Kansas's offense, but I wouldn't sleep on Fresno State. All right, game number 2, UC Davis versus Mercer. This is the only FCS matchup on my list because you got number 7 UC Davis versus number 11 Mercer. For me, I'm going to pay close attention to this game, being that I've grown up around Mercer. I live right there in Macon, Georgia for majority of my life. So watching Mercer football was a every weekend thing, especially, now with how they play. Really love watching that program go up. Both teams last year made it to the quarterfinals in the FCS playoffs. So this is a very high-stake Week 0 matchup because this is really going to determine on how both teams really project into this coming season. Now, a lot of folks are projecting UC Davis to pull out the win. It's going to be a lot of folks are having it as a very tight win, but Mercer's offense, I think the returning guys that Mercer has, I just love them a lot more than UC Davis, and plus, going to be a lot really biased. I'm going to pull for Mercer, being that is my hometown team. And then the last game, obviously the most important game, Iowa State versus Kansas State. This matchup, a very early on Big 12 title opportunity. I mean, both teams, the winner of this game more than likely will be in the Big 12 title game. Now, Kansas State is dealing with a little bit more injuries on the defense. Iowa State's dealing with a little bit more injuries on the offense. So, both teams aren't at 100%. So, to take whatever happens in this game and say, well, that's how they're going to perform for the rest of the year, it's going to be hard. Mainly, like I said, because Iowa State's losing a lot of their offensive line. Kansas State a lot on their defensive line, linebackers. So, both teams are going to really have to grind it out. Their depth are going to have to show up. And personally, I just think Iowa State is fit better for one of those styles of just really squeeze out that win. You know, Avery Johnson, he's highly profiled, and a lot of folks are talking about his running capabilities. You know, he's a very fast quarterback, one of the fastest quarterbacks in the Big 12. But I just don't think that's going to be enough. And, you know, Edwards at running back is going to be a great compliment to Johnson. But I just don't feel confident. You know, Kansas State to me is kind of like an Arkansas out of the SEC. You can either get a really great Kansas State or a really bad Kansas State. Being that they are dealing with injuries defensively, and I'm a big man on defense wins championships, I'm going to ride with Iowa State in this one. I feel like what they have on defense, pair that up with, yes, the big injuries on offense, I think they have enough depth to kind of grind out that win over Kansas State. So I'm going to go with Iowa State.